In a world where good comics are made into bad movies, three nerds with their Overstreet price guides at the ready fight to educate you about the truth of the best comic book stories. The hour of comics is upon us with hosts John Seymour, Keith Bliss, and Jason Gurin.
All right, I am proud to say that I was able to make a bad situation good because for some reason my Wi-Fi is acting up on my laptop, but I'm doing this on my phone because the show must go on. So, hope you are like you're just like a gangster right now. What's this hat? What's going on
Uh,
here?
I'm repping for my G's, bitch. Sorry.
It sounded for a second like you said you're repping for your cheese.
I said cheese, my homie cheese. Stick
Your homie
life.
cheese? Okay.
You know,
All
stick
right.
life.
So how do I sound? How do I sound to everyone?
Perfect.
Some
Sound
Fine.
perfect and excellent and wonderful and all the good things. Okay. Well, so this is now it's a different kind of show for a multitude of reasons now. First of all, it's the first one I'm recording on my phone and recording onto the cloud, which I'm gonna have to retrieve later from the cloud. I'm just gonna grab that from the cloud and be like, "Yo, Puffball, give me that," so I can put it in my editing machine and everyone can find out what all these fine people think about the first appearance of Poison Ivy. Um, it's also different because we have two guests instead of just one. Two guests. So they've both been on the show before, and that's cool and all good and all well. First, Hope, we've had you on the show. You were just on, and you wanted to come back.
yeah, it, it couldn't help it. It's like
Couldn't help it
love gingers.
because you because you love gingers. And Greg Vorob,
Hello.
what's going on, dude?
Not 20 minutes ago, I fell asleep listening to B-52's Rock Lobster, but I'm
Yeah,
here and ready to go.
Of course, this is backwards now because I'm introducing Jason. Jason, how's it going?
It is going well. What's going on?
It's going well. What's going on? And Keith.
Yes, sir.
Hello, Keith.
Hola. Long time no speak.
It's
All,
been
all 7 minutes.
it's been a very long time, and we are now about to enter in the special crazy world of the first appearance of Poison Ivy, Batman number 181. I believe this was 1966, if I am not mistaken.
Did you do
It's
your
Bat.
research and find out who wrote it and the artist and all that fun stuff?
No, I didn't. I'm sorry, Rick. I did not find that out. But you get a special shout out, Rick Mackley, because every time he listens to an episode, he says, I still wish that you would say who wrote the stories and who did the art. And my answer to that is, technically, I'm not ignoring your request. I'm just I'm just not fulfilling it very well. So anyway,
I think Bob
ignoring
Kane did this. If you might know, Bob
I
Kane
know
did.
I know who Bob Kane is. Was he still doing it? Because the first Batman
He
was like
was.
1939.
I
So
Bob. I think Bob Kane and Bill Finger. Uh, Shout out to Batman and Bill, the documentary on Hulu. Check that out, and
mhm.
it'll tell you how much Bob Kane actually did write Batman. But yeah, I think it was two different writers that wrote Poison Ivy. I did a little research, but sorry, Rick, I don't have the names either.
I feel like it was Bob Kane, but I'm not sure
It was
if there
France
was
Heron.
another writer on it. Sorry, it was who?
France Heron,
Ah,
Oh,
okay.
I
This
think.
is
no.
this is the hour of disappointing Rick. So that's
Wait, was this
like
technically Detective Comics or was it Batman?
no, this was Batman comics.
This is
Batman
This is a
Batman.
Batman.
I might be
number
wrong.
181.
Hold on.
There were so many books that I had to prepare for today that, I didn't have time to find out anything about any of them. So, they're all going to be totally half-assed and, not worth anyone's time. So,
This
I'm sorry to
podcast is
everyone.
over.
This podcast is over. I don't even know what poison ivy is. Greg was just sort of like, "Can we do poison ivy?" And I'm like, "I guess, sure." Set it up. Nah, I don't feel like it. So before we get into it, again, I want to advertise my the fundraiser, Metalheads Against Animal Cruelty and Neglect, which is going to be December 2nd from 8 p.m. to midnight at Olives in Nyack, New York. Cool bunch of fun metal bands playing, and all the money goes to charity. Not charity, so to speak, but like it's going to go to animal shelter. It's going to the animal shelter, the money. So,
Oh, that's just as good.
Greg,
Yeah.
your inability to attend the Devils game with me last year has
Right.
made it such that you are the only guest that I've had on today who I have not attended a hockey game with.
Whoa.
How do you like that?
Yes.
How do you like them
Yeah.
apples?
Yeah, but now we have the makeup game planned, and it's going to be epic, and it involves a dinner.
So I think, again, this seems to be a recurring theme where, like, I'm trying to talk about a comic book, and then I end up forgetting that we were supposed to talk about a comic book.
Yeah.
But here's the comic book. It's the first story in Batman number 181 from 1966, the first appearance of Poison Ivy, and it goes as follows. Bruce and Dick are attending a pop art show that features portraits of Gotham's top 3 female criminals, Dragonfly, Silken Spider, and Tiger Moth. When Poison Ivy arrives on the scene, she announces that she is, in fact, the number 1 female criminal in Gotham, and leaves with a blinding flash. I love the blinding flash. Everyone has to know blind you. And when Bruce Wayne becomes Batman, he's like, I can barely see, but at least no one else can see. So I'm gonna jump down this elevator shaft, and everything is gonna be great and wonderful. So anyway, the jump cut, I guess, is like, the top 3 female criminals hear of Poison Ivy's challenge, and they agree to attend her thing that will show once and for all who is in fact the most dangerous female criminal. But it turns out to be a trap set by Poison Ivy. Who could have ever guessed that? I think one of the people actually did say, "Is this a trap?" Well, I'm gonna go anyway. seems to be a recurring theme with Batman villains.
One of the women were like, "This must be a trap or something," or Batman. One of the two said it.
That they suspect that it's a trap, but go anyway. It's like, yeah, you're a good villain. You're okay. Anyway, so yeah, it's a trap. It's set by Poison Ivy to knock the 3 women unconscious and get them out of the way. And Batman and Robin, having heard of the prearranged trap, who also suspect that it's a trap, by the way.
And these people are pro Akbar.
Right, exactly. They show up at the scene to try to stop her. She uses some weird Poison Ivy charm to make Batman fall in love with her, but in the end, Batman manages to snap out of it, and she ends up in prison. That's really the whole story, right? Like, there's no plant powers as of right now.
Nope.
There's just blinding lights and electricity, and for some reason, she's called Poison Ivy with these powers, and not like Electric Woman. So let's kind of like go around. Let's start with Greg. Greg, what was your this first appearance of Poison Ivy?
I was very okay. So I'm not going to be kind, but at the same time, I got it. So I was very surprised by the suckfest that this comic was, but at the same time, for the time, and in my pseudo research, this was that they wanted more female villains, and female villains were up and coming, and so they created Poison Ivy. And again, let's disappoint Rick because I forget the name of the model that they base the look of Poison Ivy on. So it was coming, but it wasn't quite there yet.
That's
And
what
if you say that's what she said one more time, I'm gonna pop you.
I was
Mhm.
very surprised that it was not a dark comic by any means, and we all know how iconic Poison Ivy became. And there were some other parts of the Batman franchise that I don't know if it's relevant to mention that this did set into motion.
Mhm.
And I do forgive it, so to speak, for not being a very enjoyable read. But, you know, compared to the first appearance of the Joker, it's
Yeah.
like they were having a bad day. I mean, that was a couple of years before. That was many years. That was 20 years before, 26 years, I think. But it was, I think there are some people that are too fast to say all Batman is dark. Well, that's obviously not true. This is very much a comic, you know, a 1966 almost Adam West style comic.
Mhm.
But you know, it was the introduction, and all of these introductions are kind of short and to the point. And so it was whimsical and funny,
And fake.
but not much to it. It kind of reminded me of stories that I would write when I was in fourth grade, and it was just
Mhm.
I am the best female villain, but with nothing to base that on. It reminded me of a political campaign of I am the best candidate for the economy, but how? How are you going to fix the economy? Don't know. And this was I am the
Yeah.
best female villain. And then they didn't even say what was so villainous about the other three female villains. So I guess you could say the writers really here in 1966 in this corny comic didn't really know how to write women, let alone evil women. But,
Yeah.
but you know, as we know, Poison Ivy evolved into a villain that is a very iconic villain, and she kind of got darker at different incarnations and pretty cool, you know. And the last thing I was going to say escapes me. Ah, yes, you kind of want to forgive Joel Schumacher, and hear me out. It was that this is the kind of comic that he was going for in his cinematic vision of the Batman movies that he directed. So it's like I looked at that, and that's where I could be complimentary of it. It was like, okay, that is that Batman. And he was saying, well, it is a comic book, and they're going, but no, look what Burton did. Well, this was pretty much very indicative of that. So it was fun in that respect to read, okay, this is one of the incarnations of the Dark Knight. So, you know,
Yeah.
it's not that it wasn't without its fun and nostalgia.
I will have to say 1960s Batman comics are something that I can put on a hamburger for flavor. You know, like it's just so cheesy. The way that everything is presented, the way that, like, what the hell is an art pop or pop art gallery that says, "Oh, this exhibit is the three most dangerous females in Gotham." Like, what kind of pop art is that? Like, what is that?
Well, I was
And
thinking
people,
about
yeah,
that actually, and I was like, do they have like something like that for John Wayne Gacy? Like, you
Hmm.
know, like for chicks to look at, like super weird. They're like
Is this an Andy
super
Warhol book?
criminal
Yeah.
sex symbols.
Right.
again, though, it is a major part of the Batman comics and the Batman universe that this vision of Batman did exist. It's not like you could erase it, and
Mhm.
there are some people that really like it. And of course, the '60s TV series, which was iconic, was all this Batman.
Well, and they were sexing up the comic. I mean, you were saying you weren't sure who the chick was based off of, who was Poison Ivy's inspiration. I think it was Betty Page. Um,
Correct.
and
That's
it
Makes sense. Yeah.
there we go,
and
Rick. Hope just saved the show for you.
There it
no
is.
problem, Rick. I do what I can. She's a superhero of pinups, and they actually use the term pinup in here.
Yeah.
And so, you know, like we're really actually we're sex sells. That's what's going on. There's so many innuendos in this comic. They're trying
Mhm.
to appeal to people on a certain
Yeah.
level.
Yeah. Well, okay. it is no coincidence, I'm sure, that all three of the most dangerous criminals in Gotham and Poison Ivy are all presented in a very sexual manner. It's like, okay, are we supposed to be afraid of these women or are we supposed to be turned on by them? Because
A little of both.
A little bit of both. All right.
All right.
So yeah,
Mega hotties. They're just committing crimes.
can we hear from Jason Gurn about this?
I'm gonna just correct myself earlier about the wrong writer that I named. It's actually Robert Kanigher who was the writer, and he passed away in 2002. So anything that we're trashing here, he's not going to hear us. So we'll be all right.
Right.
All right. Thanks for
unless we use Victor Von Doom's machine to talk to the dead.
So
yes,
I mean, it was a 60s read. I mean, I don't want to bash it too badly because it is, from that time. Clearly, the TV show was ripped right out of these pages, and it's fun. It's silly. It's fun. It's not anything that's deep or going to make you think about it later in the day or even want to revisit it tomorrow.
That's what I love about 1960s comics. In 1960s comics, they're just like they're stupid, they're fun, and you know what? They managed to do that and still have a decent story. It's like some of it seems forced, like, oh,
I like my gritty Batman, John.
Yes, you think you're a better female criminal than me? I don't think so. I'm gonna show you by knocking you over the head with this ladder or whatever it is. Ooh, and hear from Keith. Keith, what's going on?
It was an interesting read. It was very much similar to, or very much in the same vein as the original Batman, where it was very kind of hokey dialogue and campiness. The fact that Bruce turns to Dick and he's like, "I'm a man with urges." I'm like, what is happening? And like, that's literally like the first panel. They're seeing these pinup women. And he's like, "I'm only human." Like, whoa, pump the brakes there, champ.
Settle down,
We're getting
Bruce.
a little adult here.
I want to get with these women murderers. Oh, yeah, cool.
Right.
Okay.
I want to knock boots with her. She's pretty. Like, what? How? Huh? It's the fact that he was like so hyper focused on trying to bang Poison Ivy that I'm like,
yeah,
it almost completely
was bad.
Takes away from the entire story where Dick is like, hey, Batman, you want a Batman over here? And he's like, no, I got a bat boner. I gotta try to, walk off.
I put my bat boner in the bat cave. Please.
Right, I got Batwood that I don't want to get all over my Poison Ivy. Like, what the what? So it was very like, what we have grown accustomed to with Batman over the years, and has progressed even from back then to now, is actual stories. There's meaning and dialogue and substance, not this weird, I don't know what you want to call it, crazy origin story. And the fact is that, like, it's not really an origin per se. It's just like, hey, here's a supervillain. Her name is Poison Ivy, and we'll figure the rest of it out later. Because you don't know she has powers over plants or that pheromones or any of that stuff until much, much later in the Batman run. Here, it just looks like some weird woman like the other group that dressed up in some Halloween costume and is doing weird shit.
And she's able to electrocute people.
And stick to walls, apparently, which they never actually explain.
All right.
So, I mean, it's interesting, and I get it. It's just an initial starting point for a character that they do eventually expand greatly upon. And,
sticking to wall scene was definitely, it's like, did she get bit by a radioactive plant?
Yeah, it was very weird. Like, well, she's like Poison Ivy. She's crawling up the wall. I'm like, how did? No.
There it is. All right. So she's not quite. And Hope, do you have more of a thing that you'd like to say?
Sure. He's talking about how she was crawling off of the wall, and all of her associations to her name were poetic only.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was really interesting because she did do the zap. She did, gave those chicks that crown and zapped them, like, all right, gave the sniffing salt to Batman, like in her pheromones or whatever was going on there, like that he like went crazy pants and like, couldn't calm down when we all know that's just like normal human behavior. Nothing
Yeah.
super about that power, honey.
No.
But I felt like it was wonderful to read because I watching the development of this character from I don't have any regular superpowers, knowing later she's got other tricks up her sleeve, so to speak. It's just interesting to see this introduction have kind of no correlation with her later known powers, I guess.
Yeah, it's true. And I think so like you were mentioning before, Keith, that Batman is just sort of like, but she's pretty and I want to kiss her. I want to do things with her. I think they had mentioned at the beginning of the story that she is in fact an enchantress. And
yeah, but you don't see any of that. It's just like
right.
Locks eye contact and he's like, ooh, I'm in love. Like if that was the case, why wasn't Dick Grayson?
It was one kiss. Yeah, it was one kiss.
Why wasn't Dick Grayson? I'll let you decide.
I mean, we understand why, because he's very young.
Right.
But the fact is,
sure, that's the reason I was going for. Okay,
yeah, we'll go with that 100%. Even with the henchmen outside, they were like, she's going to give us a whole $1 to beat up people, and if we beat other people up, we're going to get like $100 or some obscure, random amount of money. Yeah, we're going to get $1,000.
Right.
So, and then even throughout the whole story, she's like, I like Bruce Wayne, but I like Batman. I like Bruce Wayne. I like Batman. It's very like,
and this self-proclaimed supervillain, of the best female supervillain in the world, couldn't see that those are the same guy too.
Yeah.
Well, he's also the world's greatest detective, and he couldn't figure out that there's 3 Jokers. So let's not go down that rabbit hole.
It's sort of like, you need it for the story, and therefore it is happening because lazy writing. Why not? But
pretty much.
In this case, it's sort of like, she looked at him and Batman kind of like lost sight of what he was trying to do, namely stop a dangerous villain. And right. And Robin was like, what are you doing, man? And Batman was like, oh my God, what was I thinking? It's just sort of like, it seemed a bit supernatural to me. It didn't seem like it was like, oh, she's hot and she's hitting on me. It was like, you're Batman. You are a millionaire or whatever, a billionaire scientist. And you also are like the most powerful, non-super powered superhero in the world. You can find another woman who doesn't try to kill people, but that's why it seemed to me that it was a bit more of a like a hypnosis than an actual attraction. So yeah, that's my thoughts on it. And I did think it was a fun read. I was reading through it, waiting for her to control the plants, which she never did. And I was like, wait a second, then why is she dressed like a plant and called Poison Ivy and has nothing to do with plants? This doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, the punchline for that is that he goes and catches her after he gets her with the bat ringlets or whatever they're called. I don't forget. They're like, I don't know. He has like these like things. Yes, that's it. Batarangs. I couldn't think of the name.
Batarangs.
He throws the batarangs at her, and then they're like, he catches her, and it's like he's talking about an STD. Robin goes, "You've caught Poison Ivy." That's the punchline of the whole fucking thing.
I love it.
Me.
I love it. You can almost hear the panels go up. Like, and meanwhile, at the Bat Cave.
The Wonder Twins, the Wonder Twins and Apache Chief were going to show up.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I have my secret carousel reversal spray. Anyway, yes. Well, that seems to be that seems to cover pretty much every aspect of this, what is it, like a 12, 13 page story, which is quite loaded with a lot of stuff. Impressively enough, there's a lot of story in only these 13 pages. And as much as it was a little disappointing that there were no plants involved, I thought it was a decent story. If she had been called like Electress, then I would have been like, perfect. And this is a great story and I love it. It's just because you're expecting something else that never happens. So,
well, yeah, and I noticed that like everything's based on nature up in this bitch. Like Batman, Robin, Poison Ivy, this moth chick, like they're all like nature based. I don't know further into the reasoning for that, but Batman has bat-like things. Robin's like, he's into Morningwood or something. I don't know what he's about, but like,
yes.
Poison Ivy's again, she's like, my powers are interrelated. That was weird.
It does make me curious about her next appearance, though. I'm gonna have to look this up now to see if, how she breaks out of that supposed jail. Maybe she gets her plant powers and breaks out of that jail. There's more to think about from here.
Maybe she has explosives in her back teeth. I don't know. Like, maybe they all do. It's just like
explosive molars.
Oh, that's the Joker's gag, right?
Yeah. No, I'm just saying, like, just like there's always going to be something stupid. It's like they're in prison, and the writing has to be lazy so that it can only fill up one panel. It's like, because you want the story, you don't care about how they escape from prison. You want to know what they're doing when they're out of prison. So like, okay, fine. I'll buy that he has explosives in the back of his teeth. Boom, you're out. What are you up to now? Okay, cool. Anyway, I guess that will just about cover it. Jason, where can people find you?
You can find me on Facebook. I'm in a group called Comic Book Villains, which I'm an admin. And you can also find me on Discord of a group called Comic Book Addicts.
Keith?
When I'm not here, I'm on a podcast called Happiness and Darkness. We review superhero movies or any movie that is based on superhero comic books, short stories, graphic novels, even manga, depending on if it strikes our fancy. We do take requests. You find us on Facebook, Happiness and Darkness, Twitter, X, whatever it's called this week, depending on Elon Musk's mood. Listen to our podcasts on Spotify, Apple, all the big brands. Give us a listen, give us a like, submit us some feedback. We do what we can.
Greg, save me some work.
Yeah, well, lastly, about this comic, for all I panned it, there is nothing wrong with fun. Sometimes there's nothing wrong with campy fun sometimes. Okay, so that's my last word on this comic. Okay, yeah, if you're a Star Trek fan, find me hosting with Dan Hulley, Dan Martin, and Ken Radner, Star Trek The Undiscovered Podcast. If you're a Trekkie, there's no better podcast. Find us wherever you get your podcasts. Find me on YouTube at Greg Vorob. That's VOROB at Greg Vorob on YouTube. You can see stuff there. Marty and Doug's New Religion, after 13 years, is finally getting some traction.
I was waiting, man.
Yeah, man. So check out, but there's a lot of fun goodies on that channel, so check that out. On X, formerly Twitter, at Greg_Vorob, again, VOROB, and on Facebook, Greg Vorob, and my page, which is very inactive, but it will be, and so that's both Greg Vorob.
All right, cool. And Hope, the highest of ions, aka Hion spelled with a J.
Yeah. So if you want to find me, and also Magic Ion, aka John Seymour, we're in a band called Secret Ion. You look on Facebook under Secret Ion and you'll find us. Also, I do Liquid Imagination, which is my art. You can find me on Instagram, and that'll show you my art, music, burlesque at Liquid Imagination on Instagram. And if you go to my slave name on Facebook, it's Jen Woodison. But I'm not from this planet anymore, so just call me Hope.
Hey, there you go. because aliens are all called Hope. And as for me, John Seymour, JON space SEYMOUR on Facebook, I am holding up a sign that says I'm 40 years old and I'm starting my first day of grad school. And I'm wearing a Fantastic Four shirt in my profile picture. That's me on Facebook. Email into the show. The Hour of Comics is upon us. The Hour of Comics is upon us at gmail.com. Great email. Takes a while to type out, but it's well worth it. Tell me what comics you want to hear about. Tell me if you want to be a guest on the show, and listen to the other show, Bullshit Hour with John Seymour, because these are the two greatest podcasts of all time. Oh boy, this is going to be long because we have two guests. So until then, I want to thank Jason, I want to thank Keith, I want to thank Greg, and I want to thank Hope. I want to thank you all for being part of the first ever The Hour of Comics is upon us with two special guests, and we managed to get through it, and this was a great conversation, and thank you so much, and we will see you next time. Good night, everyone.
Yeah.